So I am tired. What a lot of people don't know is that being a patient is a full-time job. So on Monday, I had a lot of blood tests and a lot of pulmonary tests, but that's not why I'm tired. I'm tired because of the 2 weeks leading up to the tests, okay? When I had to deal with calling doctors' offices, staff that wouldn't return phone calls, staff that tell you to email or send messages via portal and then they don't respond, and then you have to send a follow-up email. And then a few days pass, you call, no one's picking up the phone, and when they finally pick up the phone, you wait 40 minutes. This is the life of a patient. It's called red tape fatigue. And in my experience, the red tape fatigue, the following up, all of that is worse than all the blood tests, and I take a lot of blood tests. And it is worse than the pulmonary tests, and it's worse than 90% of my physical exams. Mind you, I hate all of those tests. So red tape fatigue is not just something you experience at the doctor's office. You also experience it with insurance companies, and depending on what state you're in, with government programs like SSI, Medicaid, and Social Security. And I say depending on what state, because in some states, programs actually don't have bureaucratic red tape, which is great. But where I live, in Illinois, every year I have to do about 60 pages, at least, of paperwork for Medicaid redetermination. And the information is redundant, even though the details change, and they want every detail, right? It's redundant because my illnesses are chronic. So they're the same illnesses I had last year. That's the definition of chronic. And in Illinois, we have this thing called churn. So 50% of people on Medicaid are removed from Medicaid every year due to clerical errors, and they have no idea. And when they find out they're removed, they have to hire legal representation. This further disenfranchises the poor. That's if you can afford legal representation, and you're not going to be compensated for those attorneys' fees. So you need a hearing because of somebody else's error. And then there's things like permanent forms, right? So let's say you get approved for a permanent disability placard. You will have to renew that, even though it's called permanent. Permanent means no cure, right? And so your doctor has to fill out those forms. Doctors spend a third of their time doing paperwork. And when you consider that the average doctor's visit in this country is 15 minutes, that is a lot of time wasted on paperwork. There are people who die waiting to get approval from insurance companies or SSI or Medicaid. You know, by the time they're approved, by the time they are approved, it is too late. Now, I don't know how your cable company is, but mine is annoying. So imagine dealing with 5 or 6 cable companies, right? That's what it's like if you have 5 or 6 illnesses. You're dealing with multiple doctors' offices, and none of them are eager to coordinate care or share information. So the burden falls entirely on the patient. And there are dire consequences too for red tape at doctors' offices. There are people who've been on a medication 5, 6, or 7 years, and they just need a simple refill, and their messages are not being forwarded to the doctor. Once I had the secretaries of the people at the front desk of my OBGYN tell me they were busy. They didn't have time for my phone calls. I told them I just needed a standard refill, and they said, well, we're busy updating the computer system. They didn't call me back for 3 weeks. One of my cousins who's a doctor said to me, she's like, this behavior is unacceptable. If it were up to me, I would fire them. I would do this, this, and that. And I'm like, I mean, that's great that she has standards, but I'm a patient. You know, I can't just go around firing people who are not doing their jobs. And the paperwork, it never ends, right? So after this doctor's visit, there's more paperwork. There's going to be another doctor's visit. The paperwork is soul crushing. A friend once told me that there was a moment before she started chemotherapy, so she had cancer. There was a brief moment before she started chemo when she wanted to die because of all of the paperwork. And what hurts even more is that there is this erroneous perception that people who are on disability or programs like Medicaid or SSI are somehow lazy. And the truth is, nothing could be further from the truth, because we spend half of our time bogged down in paperwork. And even there are some people with disabilities who are physically capable of working a part-time job. So let's say that's possible. How could you work a part-time job when you are spending half your time following up with doctor's offices that don't return calls, or that put you on hold for 40 minutes, or you are just doing paperwork after paperwork? It's like writing a college thesis every year to do my Medicaid redetermination. So, I mean, people don't understand how awful the paperwork is. And to conclude, I just want to say that advocacy is important, right? So I am the communications director for Healthcare Rights Coalition, and we work with Protect Our Care Illinois. Protect Our Care Illinois is a coalition of coalitions. They have organized a coalition of over 130 groups that work to improve healthcare. And right now, Protect Our Care is advancing a bill in the Illinois Senate that would reduce churn in Medicaid. We call it the Medicaid Eligibility Determination and Renewal Reform Act, SB 2021. And here are a few things that it would do, right? So it would do things like make Medicaid renewal simpler and less burdensome by reducing the required paperwork. It would modernize the system to rely more on electronics. It would restore Medicaid coverage in a timely fashion for those who have had it lapse due to a cancellation in renewal. It would require better coordination between programs like Medicaid and SNAP. So advocacy both on a statewide level and a national level is very important. And these are the most brilliant and compassionate people I've ever worked with. So I feel very optimistic about SB 2021 passing in the Illinois Senate. So lastly, I want to say, have you ever had to deal with red tape and paperwork of being a patient? If so, how do you manage? And yeah, just let me know how you feel in the comments. Bye.